Yo, what's up you guys? Marty Schwartz here, GuitarJams.com. I've got my buddy Paul here working the camera, so it's a good opportunity for me to move around the studio a little bit, which I normally don't have the freedom to do. So what I want to talk to you today about is this like symbiotic relationship between the guitar, the amp, and the pedals, the effect pedals. I'm going to walk you through each of those little things and kind of keep it loose, but show you some of the things that I think about and some of the things that I've learned with that concept. Okay, one, I have two different kinds of guitars I like to play. One is like a humbucker style guitar, which would be this Les Paul, and then another style would be a single coil pickup guitar, which is like a Fender Stratocaster over here or a Fender Telecaster. They're not as hot sounding, they're not as loud, not as much output. They're a little cleaner, so there's different tweaks and knobs that you can adjust per guitar. So what I'm going to start with though is this Les Paul rock and roll guitar. I love to use tube amps. I use a divided by 13 CJ11, and then I also like Fender tube amps, and right now I'm plugged into a Fender DeVille. And one thing I've learned from my buddy Bob Ryan with as far as the treble and the mids and the bass on like a tube amp, it's basically just flat up. You got to adjust the volume so you don't blow anyone's head off, right? So, you know, get a decent tone, but basically from there I just have my treble, bass, and mids just all straight up, and then I adjust my tone on my guitar and my pedals. Now with a single coil guitar, you might turn the volume up a little bit, and then you might turn the treble down a little bit with a single coil guitar. They're a little bit brighter, but more or less we're just kind of going for a straight up. I have a little bit of reverb, and so what I do, regardless of my effects, my guitar, my amp, is I just try and set up a good clean starting tone on my amp. Okay? I'm using my front pickup here most of the time for my rhythm playing, but I use the back pickup and the front pickup in a lot of different situations. I typically don't use the center one, but what we'll do is we'll now go and take a look at my pedal board and get some different tones out of the guitar. Here we go. Okay, let's talk about just the pedal board unit itself. There's so many different ways you can go. You don't have to go as fancy as this, but this is a SKB. It's called the Stage 5. It wasn't really that expensive. I think maybe $150. And expensive is a relative term anyway. But what's really cool about this is you plug the unit in, and then you've got all these little cables that are designed for the different pedals, and it powers all the pedals. So you don't ever have to worry about losing your battery juice and all that stuff. Another thing that was cool about this pedal board is that it's elevated, so you can loop all your mucky muck, as Nigel Tufnell would say. You can put all your cables underneath, so it's not all messy, or less messy, I would say. Alright? So it's fun. It's good to have because you can just pop it out and it's ready to go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about here in the chain is we'll just start over here on the right. We've got a compressor pedal. Now when I use a humbucker guitar like a Les Paul or an SG, I don't use a compressor pedal. It's a pedal that kind of squashes your highs and your lows and gives you a little more sustain. Kind of just squashes your overall sound a little bit. It evens out your tone. And when you're using a single coil guitar like a Fender Strat, I find that it's like one of the secret weapons. So I do recommend a compressor on like a Strat. But for right now, since I've got my Les Paul, I'm not using it. Okay, next is the wah-wah pedal, or wah pedal. And I've got a standard Crybaby pedal here, but I love the Vox wahs as well. You can stay right there. But, stomp down to activate it, and now I have wah-wah fun. And there you have it. Fancy wah. I don't use it too much, but, when you do need it, you do need it. Now check this out. This is something that I do. I'm constantly playing with my pedals. I don't always have it one way. But what I've got here is an Ibanez tube screamer. And what I do is I turn the level all the way up, and I turn the drive all the way down, and I basically just start with the tone in the middle, and if it sounds a little too bright, I might pull it off a little bit. And so what I get from this is I'm going to also switch to the back pickup, and I'm going to roll my tone off until probably to about 6, 5, somewhere between 5 and 6. And I turn this on. And you don't get anything. Oh, there we go. It's a little bright, so turn the tone knob down a little bit. Listen to it without. So it works as a little boost and a little gain push. So it gives you, you know, a little bit of overdrive, but not necessarily distortion. So for like a clean single note kind of thing, it raises your signal. So it's a good way for like a mid-rangey kind of solo. But then I have this OCD here, and this will probably get a little loud. But then this is my actual distortion pedal. I use them together. So like I'd have like, you know, Richter, Super Richter, you know, so that's going to give me my full out. Pretty loud, sorry. Okay, so I can kind of get different levels of, different degrees of drive and gain by playing with these two together. You know, when they're both on, you get a whole lot of gain, and when you know, one or the other, you can kind of even them out. Now I've got a digital delay here, which is kind of cool to have it. You can see how I have it set, but it's supposed to give me a really subtle, turn this down a little bit, a little subtle repeat. And that just kind of rounds out your tone a little bit when you're soloing sometimes. It just gives you a different kind of feel, like you know, like Eric Johnson and Joe Bonamassa used that delay like that. The final thing in my palette, there's a couple of things. One, I've got this fat boost. It's not even plugged in right now. It's just a clean boost. So for instance, when I'm using this setting right here, which is a distortion, a guitar synth sound, then I use this fat boost here. Like I said, it's not plugged in right now, but I use it for that synth, so it'll cut through because there's not a good volume adjustment on this setting. I have this set here as a bass, so when I'm using my guitar looper, I can hit that setting and create the bass line for my loop, you know. So that's just a fun thing to be able to have. This is something I don't use too often, but it gives me an extra amount of reverb if I. Yeah. Another setting that's pretty cool is a phaser, and I would use that in like single note rhythm kind of stuff, like. It gives you this kind of nice washy Ottawa sound. The last thing I would use on here is this thing, and this is a sweep echo. So instead of having kind of your basic digital delay pedal, what I have now is a more trippy kind of repeat. For those psychedelic space jams, you know, and you've got a tap tempo right here on this setting. And that's mostly what I use, and for the most part, I'm really using these two pedals more than anything just for my clean and my drive. But then, you know, I try and sparingly use some of these other colors just to mix it up, you know, just a little variety, and it's fun.